From the Oregon State University's Extension Service, you are listening to In the Woods with the Forestry and Natural Resources Program. This podcast aims to share the voices of researchers, land managers, and members of the public interested in telling the story of how woodlands provide more than just trees. They provide interconnectedness that is essential to your daily life. Stick around to discover a new topic related to forests on each episode. Just a reminder to all our listeners that we have an amazing website at inthewoodspodcast.org. Go there to let us know what you think about our podcast, or you can even leave us a voicemail that we can feature on a future episode. We're really excited to hear what topics you want us to cover. So today, I'm really excited to have a bunch of women on the podcast with me today. We're going to be talking about an amazing program that Oregon State University Extension offers. It's called Women Owning Woodlands. Or for short, WOWNet, the Women Owning Woodlands Network. And on the podcast with me today is Tiffany Hopkins. Can you say hi, Tiffany?
Hi.
Tiffany is the coordinator of the program. Tiffany, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this role?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying hi. My name is Tiffany Hopkins, and I coordinate the WOWNet program and also the Master Woodland Managers program for OSU Forestry and Natural Resources Extension. I guess my background as far as schooling is I went to OSU for my bachelor's, and I had an emphasis so my bachelor's was in forestry and natural resources, and then I had an emphasis in community outreach education. So I just knew that I wanted to do some sort of educational outreach. And I heard someone from Extension talk about what she did one of my classes and fell in love with the entire concept. So I went to West Virginia University and studied under a extension agent there. So I got some really good hands-on work with extension through that. And then this job just opened up right at the right time, and I got to come back to Oregon. I was born and raised here, so that was kind of my dream. And I love being the coordinator for WOWNet. It's a really awesome program.
Yeah, it is an awesome program. And a lot of that is thanks to you too, and the great programs that you put on. So thanks for finding your way back to Oregon and showing all these women a great time. So tell us a little bit more about the Women Owning Woodlands program. What's its history? What's it about?
Yeah, so it's been around for about 15 years, and as the story has been passed down to me, it originated in the back of a pickup truck with a group of women who were at just a generic forestry tour, and the women found themselves gathered together with Nicole Strong, who is the one who was kind of the brainchild behind this whole thing. And they were just talking and asking her the questions that they didn't feel comfortable asking in front of the whole group, and talking amongst each other about their experiences and those kinds of things. And then they kind of just all were like, wait, we need a group where we can do this and feel safe to do this, and it's like special for us. And so Nicole just kind of took that and ran with it and started a steering committee comprised of pretty much those women, and they started the network. Now we have about 400 women that are across the state of Oregon. If you kind of hone into the name, a peer learning network, there's a lot of emphasis on the experiences and stories and knowledge of the participants. So it's less top-down programming. So if I put on a workshop, it's equally an expert, quote unquote, coming in and talking about a topic, and the women who are there being able to ask questions and engage with each other and spend time with each other and share their experiences. And so creating that networking opportunity. And I think that from my perspective, that's what sets WOWNet apart from other offerings to woodland owners. And yeah, it's also a national program. So there's different types and formats of WOWNet across the entire country. I think, as far as I know, Oregon I think there's a little bit of a debate if it's like the actual first program. And I don't care. I don't get into the debate. But yeah, if it was the first one or not, but it is like the biggest and most substantial at this point. And that's just because of, I think, a lot of the work that Nicole did to make sure that there's a coordinator. So a lot of other places don't actually have a specific coordinator for the program. And so we're really lucky that half of my time goes towards WOWNet.
Yeah, that's great. And it's so nice to have people that are dedicated to empowering the education of women, especially around forestry. And it's great to have this program here. Are you able to share some of the feedback that you've gotten from the program, or how do people like it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the feedback always is positive. So that's good. Just like in general, as far as like, specific to topics, I'm sure there's always some things that could be better, but as the program as a whole, it's very well received. I think there's some people who don't understand, like, why would that be necessary? And there's some women who don't understand why it would be necessary. And I don't really look at that as a bad thing. I think that's awesome, because that woman has enough confidence that she does not feel like she can't ask questions or, whatever. But yeah, I think as far as specifically, I don't know like how specific but I think for one of the big groups that WOWNet helps is women who didn't grow up in the forestry community, like they were somehow brought into it, I guess, most likely via marrying someone who was in the forestry world or who owns forest property, or because a parent passed away, or both their parents passed away, and they inherited forest property. But because historically that wasn't something that a woman or girl was involved in, they didn't work in the woods as much with their dad as their maybe brothers did. And so they just have less experience and less knowledge and feel really intimidated. And so that's a huge area where we get a lot of positive feedback. Like, I feel like I was just going to have to sell my property, or I was drowning in it, or all these different things. And then I found WOWNet and saw all these other women who are out there doing this work, and realized I can do it too. And even in my brain, more powerful than that, now I have a team of women to support me in that work. And I can reach out to them if I'm having a hard time. And I think just women in general, that feels really empowering to me, but especially around a topic where likely you don't have this in common with your friends, with your other girlfriends. It's like probably most of your other friends don't own large chunks of property and manage forests as a part of their life. And so to be able to find this outlet, that's also where a lot of like positive feedback comes from. I can't remember, somebody one time said, like, all my other friends think I'm weird and you guys all just understand me, or something like that.
That's so nice how it builds that community and a friendship, in a different realm than you would normally see.
Yeah.
So awesome. Yeah. And, those women that, attend or maybe don't understand, or people that don't understand, why the group's needing, it makes me think about those dating website commercials, when they're like, our goal is for us to use us and then get rid of us, we want to be out there empowering you, educating you, and making you feel like you can build your community. And if you feel like you've gotten that, that's great. You won't.
Yeah, totally. Some people, like, I guess in this world where it's all about numbers, is like, bad if a woman kind of stops coming to WOWNet stuff. And I think some people, like when we get to talk to Debi, she'll probably be a part of WOWNet for forever, even though she's a genius and all these things. It's not just about that. It's not that she has the knowledge and capability and all that to participate in all these other things, but there's so many other benefits that end up coming out of it that that's kind of a whole separate thing. But if there's a woman that like pops into my mind that kind of followed that exact trajectory. Like her husband passed away. She thought she was going to sell the property to this like developer, and then randomly just came to a WOWNet little hike and met with me in the parking lot afterwards and was crying and was like, I can't believe that I just found this. And she came to every single WOWNet thing that I had, no matter where it was in the state, for multiple years. And then she just kind of stopped, and I started seeing her throughout that time at tree school. And I think she was wanting to take Master Woodland Manager, and just so she, through WOWNet, was able to really build all this knowledge and confidence, and then kind of started going to all these other things and maybe just didn't have as much time, or, you know, whatever the case is. But I don't look at that as like WOWNet failing, or that's sad that we, you know, lost one of our numbers from our amount of people who are in the program. I think that's a huge success story. It's like, great, like you got what you needed from our program and now you kind of graduated or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think a lot of other people stick with it and can keep coming back no matter what, because of all the other things that it has to offer besides just the empowering piece of it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And all the WOWNet events that I get to attend and that I'm lucky enough to be asked to help teach at or help you coordinate are always some of my favorite events. They're so fun.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, well, you mentioned Debi, so I want to also introduce our audience to Debi Lorence. Welcome to the podcast, Debi.
Hi, everyone.
Debi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 57 years old. I live in a town called Halfway. It's actually Halfway's located in a valley called Pine Valley. And there's about 290 people who live in the city of Halfway and roughly 1,750 people that live in the valley. And so I actually live about a mile outside of Halfway, considered in the valley. I have two daughters who are grown. One of them went into forestry and environment, and the other one is an emergency nurse who lives in Hillsboro. And then the other daughter, who's forestry and environmental ed, actually lives here in Halfway with us right now. I have a husband, been married 30 years. We're building a house on a 17-acre piece of property that didn't have one tree on it when we bought it a little under 2 years ago. So I came from the west side where we had trees and we had a Christmas tree farm. And I was... This is a negative story gone good, though. I actually went through an audit one year, maybe 2005, and the auditors said, oh, well, you're just a small tree farm. It looks like a hobby farm here. When in fact, you know, what we were doing is creating this Christmas tree farm. So it took a lot of money and a lot of investment, a lot of upfront stuff. And we didn't have a lot of revenue for a long time. So the auditors actually said to me, they said, well, you really need to join a professional group. You need to look like you're taking this seriously. And so I asked around in our community, which was all wineries, basically, and hazelnuts. And somebody said to me, well, have you ever heard of the group OSWA? And I was like, no. And that's Oregon State Woodlands Association. Am I saying that right, Tiff? OSWA, Oregon State Woodlands Association.
Oregon Small Woodlands Association.
Oh, small. There you go. Small Woodlands. And so I joined and I was like, wow. I was never so thankful to go through a horrible audit, and became very involved. I loved it. I met all these people. I mean, at the time I was, I don't know, I suppose I was like late 30s, early 40s. And they were all old timers, right? They were all like my grandpas. And I loved going, and they were loggers and they had all these great stories. And I learned a ton from these old timers. And I literally was the youngest person in those meetings. And eventually those people would, completely retire from the business, and their children were taking over their woodlands, or they were selling. And I watched the dynamics of Oregon Small Woodlands change to people my age or even a little bit younger coming into it. And their questions were so great, and this community kind of formed within the Oregon Small Woodlands. And that was the one in Washington County, specifically what I'm talking about. And then from there, they have all these landowner things where you get to go out and walk on people's land, and all these old timers would bring out all their cool old equipment, and it was lovely. And I remember sitting with somebody, and they go, do you know anything about WOWNet? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, Debi, it's like you and I. It's these women out there trying to learn about forestry and woodlands. And so anyway, she invited me to a WOWNet event, and that's when I met Tiffany. And I just got hooked immediately, because you do feel really isolated, right? Even though, like I said, I've been married 30 years, my husband has zero interest in this. Like he wants to live out in the middle of nowhere. That was really easy. And he liked all the trees, but he had no interest in taking care of it. He just wanted to live in it, and just enjoyed that part of it, right? So it was really up to me, and then raising my daughters in a way that we could manage it. So yeah, otherwise I've been in teaching and a principal and community development for over 30 years in my professional life. So yeah.
Great. That was a great story. I'm so happy to hear that. So you did go into a little bit about why you joined WOWNet. Is there, once you got there, you want to share with us a little bit about why you stayed?
It was like having a bunch of older sisters around me, to be honest. And it was like having people, and you could ask the dumb question and not feel dumb. When you're with men and they are all in this industry of logging or timber or Christmas trees or whatever they are in forestry, it is intimidating. They are very knowledgeable. They're very adept to using machinery. They understand how to fix things, right? And it just feels super uncomfortable to like raise your hand in one of those meetings and go, yeah, so like my chainsaw, it stopped working. And I really didn't know how to put the chain back on. That's just like, so, I don't know, so lame for those people who do it all the time, blindfolded practically. So the people that go just make you feel comfortable. And we're all really trying to do the same thing. And that is honor our property that we're responsible with, and, learn how to do that.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah. We all just want to get along and take care of the woods, right? Maybe some of you can remind me how to put a chainsaw chain. What is it even called? Chainsaw chain back on. I did it a long time ago, but I haven't gotten to do it in a while. I'll have to come visit you, Debi.
Debi hosted a small diameter tree falling workshop for WOWNet at her property with her daughter. They taught it together, and they went through the whole thing with the chainsaw and then showed us how to fall a tree.
That's amazing. Cool. See, I wish I was there.
Yeah, we've never done anything like that. It was awesome.
Well, and my favorite thing about that is I actually was blessed to restart a ladies group in the town I lived in. And it was an women of ag group called Ladies of Laurel from 1928. And so I took some time to reopen that and revive that. And we started with 5 people at a potluck. It sounded a lot like the Nicole Strong story, where I was dying to know my neighbors, and we were, acres apart. And so we just, I literally just hand wrote an invitation saying, would you want to come to my house and meet me and have a potluck? I'll make the meat and provide the wine. Right. Which was stupid because I didn't drink wine, and it was all winery people, but I did. I learned quite quickly that I should not offer people wine. Like
it's the thought that counts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I got him there. And at that table, we discussed how important it was to have girlfriends.
Yeah.
And then literally I remember asking people, well, what are 5 things that you want to share about yourself? And as we went around the table and shared those 5 things, it was ridiculous how we were all the same.
Mm-hmm.
It was like arts, nature, environment, hiking, biking, walking, whatever, family, cooking. It was like all the things that make you proud to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
and not shamed about those things. And from there, it grew to 75 people. And so when we hosted the thing, I remember telling Tiffany, I'm like, I got women. These women want to know, they want to know how to run a chainsaw. They're excited to learn more. And they had never heard about WOWNet. So it was just a super fun opportunity to bring those same women together that we would get together and do other stuff together. To a whole new place of safety where they could learn and be okay about being a woman. Mm-hmm. and doing the work of the typical man, I guess.
That's great. And so you kind of alluded to some of this already, but why else is WOWNet really important to you, or important in general, do you think? And more specifically to you, what has it offered you that maybe you haven't found somewhere else?
Well, I would say there's nothing else like it. I mean, honestly, there's really nothing else where women can get together and freely learn and get information and grow in something they're passionate about in forestry or environment. And what Tiffany has done is, I mean, it's amazing. I just love what she has done. And she's so humble, and dealing with Tiffany, I mean, she's so knowledgeable and just a wonderful person to be around, and so knowledgeable. And yet she always brings us to the table and makes us feel like we are the ones that have the information, which is, most of the time not true. I mean, we have information to share, but it's Tiffany who does this. So I love that about her. I love that about, and I know that's why people come, right? Like, who wants to come to an event where you have a prideful, really, I don't know, like non-open-minded person to learning and engaging others. And she provides an environment that's very safe and very loving, and easy to engage in. So I definitely wanted to say that's one thing that's super unique about WOWNet.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with you about Tiffany. She does that in our workspace as well. Makes everything really comfortable, and really does a great job at building camaraderie around our team. So it's great to hear that she does that around the woodland owners as well. So I 100% agree. And I think you're being hard on yourself about the not knowing anything thing. Having experience on that land gives you a lot of knowledge that you can share with the other landowners that you're with. So don't forget that.
You guys are gonna make me cry.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Debi, what's your favorite part about WOWNet?
So we are all so busy, right? I mean, everybody is super busy, but people will put time aside for things that they're passionate about, right? They always will. Like, look at the holidays. Everybody's so busy, but they tend to make the holidays happen in their household usually. So my favorite part about WOWNet is that it speaks to a passion that I don't know, but I think sometimes we're born with these passions. Like, I don't know that I acquired it. I've just always been a lover of being outside and working outside with my hands and being a part of the trees, and things that happen in the trees. So I love that she gives us, and WOWNet gives us a space to do that and be with other people who make the time in their schedule to pursue their passion, So everybody, when you go out there, it's filled with energy because everybody has cut time out of their schedule to make this happen. Everybody has. And so you're coming together with this, just super positive group of people. Like, nobody shows up and who's just like a dick about it, to be honest. they're just like super happy, right? Like they're like, yeah, we're here, and they're game on, so it's really, it's a lovely experience.
I think that's really good what you said about the energy. That's something that I've always noticed about WOWNet events specifically, is there is this certain type of energy, and sometimes I crave it. Like sometimes I will just be like, we haven't had a WOWNet thing in too long. Like during COVID and stuff, I was just like, I can't. I need it. I need to feel you all, because it's just something different about being around a group of women who have carved out the time and who are passionate about this same topic that you are, that I always leave there with my cup feeling so full. And I think that's unique because I coordinate another program with woodland owners, I can directly compare. And it's like, it's not exactly the same. I think a lot of times when I leave some of those other things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so drained. Like that was so much work. I need to like recover. And after WOWNet, I'm like, okay, what's the next thing we're doing? Because I'm just like so excited about it. And it's definitely something about that energy that you were talking about, Debi, that is unique to WOWNet and probably the same that makes people want to come back and for more, because that's how I feel.
Yeah, those bustling programs are always so exciting. I always picture the events being they're so great, but then also coming around the food and building the community and talking to each other. And so it feels so great. You do feel like you're around a group of friends. And I wish I got to go to more programs. Okay, speaking of programs, Debi, do you have a favorite experience or workshop or memory of WOWNet that you'd be willing to share with us?
Tiffany did this one, and Tiff, remind me, I don't remember what year it was. We were at this camp that this couple had bought this camp, and you got to go spend the night and
The retreat.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like I just remember that. I mean, I remember a lot of that. And that was like, it was just so unique to be with women, that you've never met before. And now you're like in these cabins with them, and you get up in the morning and you have your little breakfast thing going down, and then you have a guest speaker. But a couple of the guest speakers that I remember specifically, because they really changed my direction of where I was going. And one of them was this gal, and Tiff, you'll remember her name because she literally went on to be kind of famous in the world of forestry. But her and this guy started the whole forestry education thing for fire. And that literally became where I got involved with like Firewise.
Oh, Carrie Berger. Yeah.
Right.
And so Daniel. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And they shared their story about fire and creating safety where you live in your neighborhood. And Carrie gives this very personal story about it. And then it goes on, and they were just writing the curriculum, right? The curriculum hadn't been published yet. And they were telling us about, fire in communities. Well, this was kind of, this was like not necessarily the hot topic yet in Oregon. Yeah. I mean, this had been kind of happening in California while they were coming out and talking to us about this. And so it really made me rethink about fire and rethink about my direction I was going to take our property at that time, our Christmas tree property. So there was that guest speaker. And then there was this other guest speaker who talked about, what do you do when you die? Mm-hmm. How do you will your property? Who gets your property? And then what do you want for those people? Do you want them just to chop down all your trees and build houses? What was your vision that didn't quite get completed while you were alive, right? And so I literally went home and I started diving into what's called a management plan. And I think even then they sent links. And then further, when we did the Master of Woodlands, program, I mean, we dove in really hard to that. But that became two life changers for me, was thinking about my property for fire. And then what is my management plan? What if I died? What if I didn't even make it home from that conference? Would my girls even know what I was trying to do? I mean, I was really working hard at making the neighbors know, because I was doing like little summer camps and outings with kids on my property. And I had like little stations. And every time you went, Christmas time wasn't just like, come get a tree, by golly, they were going to learn how old that tree was, how long, that just tree that's going to show up in your house for 2 weeks took me 12 years to grow. And sweet darling, we got some education to do. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah. Right. And so, so that was an event that was, really monumental for me and changing my direction of thinking.
I love that. I think that was actually a conversation that we had about like what were people's biggest fears around management. And yes, that's what I was trying to get at, was the dying piece without just going for it directly, because that is something that does tend to come out in the research, that women are more interested in, more worried about, more willing to talk about than like their husbands often, or their dads or whatever are. But it's really hard to get people to talk about that. And so, yeah, I that was also monumental to me, because I was terrified, because I led that discussion. So I'm so happy to hear that it had that kind of an impact on you, because I was just like, oh my goodness, this could go so bad. But that's part of the thing that I love about WOWNet, is just like, even if I could try something like that, and you all will be accepting of it, or be receiving of it, even if it doesn't go like I was hoping, or like it was planned, or whatever. And that whole conversation didn't go exactly like I, dreamed it up in my brain, but it was beautiful, and it was natural and organic. And that's what I was hoping for.
I have got to ask you, Tiff, you got to remember this WOWNet thing. This was crazy talk. These two sisters, okay, we were having all these fires on the east side, and it was a WOWNet deal. And these two sisters show up, and they had inherited this property over by Jefferson. I don't know. It has to be, it was either Oswald or it was WOWNet. And they talked about how they had never even walked the property of it was like their dad's or their grandpa's property. And they lived in California, and they had to come up and start working with was that WOWNet? Or maybe it was a side conversation, but it was crazy to think. And they were super inspired to start getting involved with their property. And then this fire hit, I mean, you guys remember when the whole Jefferson area burned up? It was over Sisters Jefferson Bend, maybe 4 years ago. Anyways, I just remember them going, why didn't we do this sooner? Why didn't we walk our property sooner? What it was is they were going to retire in California, these two sisters, and then come move to Oregon and, start really looking at their grandpa's property. It was ridiculous too. They owned like 1,300 acres or something. It was like big piece of property, and they'd never even been there. And now it was on fire. Right. And now they had to make some really critical decisions about what was going to burn and what should they try to save. And there was like this old cabin on the property. Do you remember this?
Yes. Yeah. I think it was a mixture. It was at that same retreat. It was because they have maps and stuff of it.
Yes.
Maps. Yeah. Yeah. Daniel and Carrie were just like going nuts because they had been directly impacted by that fire. And it was before we all had not all, but so many of us had directly felt the impacts of fire. And so the fact that they had been directly affected by this fire and had the maps and all this stuff, Daniel and Carrie were just totally nerding out. So we had a big conversation about that. But then I think during that other conversation, they kind of brought some more of like the personal feelings and stuff around it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't just dream that up, but it was a nightmare I had.
Yeah.
It was so real though. Yeah.
Your stories just give me chills, thinking about this, like the real life situations that you're able to address and just work through together in just real time that people are afraid to address in any other settings. It's so wonderful that this program exists and that you're able to meet those needs and address really important, serious topics and make it through the other side. It's so great to hear. So, Debi, do you have anything else that you wanted to share about WOWNet, or Tiffany, before we?
So moving to this new community, Halfway or Pine Valley, I got a hold of Tiff because she's my favorite person to get a hold of to bring people together. And it was right when I moved here, right, Tiff? I literally had started the Firewise program here, Pine Valley Firewise community. And I saw that people were hungry coming out of COVID to meet. And fire is just like that neutral topic, right? So we have like 250 people that live in our WOWI area, which is the wildland urban interface. So these are what a lot of them would even call themselves, I don't know, they're old hippies, or they're, what do they call them? Muffin, I don't know, whatever, mushroom people. I don't know, whatever they want to call themselves. And they bought their property a long time ago. They wanted to retire, in the middle of nowhere. And literally, like, some of them have been here, bought their property 30 years ago, but have only moved here like 5 or 6 years ago, right? And these are homes way stuffed up into the woods. Well, starting the Firewise community, it wasn't that difficult because these people were nervous about where they lived. They knew enough to know they were in a hot spot. Our woods on this north wall hasn't been on fire for 90 years. So when I kind of started this conversation, started bringing people together, what I noticed was, again, it wasn't the men that were asking the questions. It was the women. It was the women wanted to know, how do I protect our home? How do I protect the structure? What do I look for? What's a disease tree? What's not a disease tree? Like, what can I do? And here where we live in Pine Valley, it is a do-it-yourself program. These people are do-it-yourself people. They don't go hire people to help, right? If you move here, you better put your boots on and get ready to, like, for my husband and I, build our house. Like, literally, I'm not kidding. I can't believe we're still married. And so,
congratulations.
Yeah, that's its own topic of success. Yeah. So, the thing was about, so I got a hold of Tiff because I'm like, Tiff, we got to do a program here. And she's like, well, what do you want to do it on? And I'm like, making it up, right? Because I hadn't been here that long. But I'm like, let's do it on mapping and compassing, right? That's just another thing where I have always found women are shy of, or we don't have the same aptitude, to go figure. You're with your husband in their car and you're like, well, look at the map, look at the directions. I know how to get there. I don't need to, stop telling me where to go. I know how to get there. Like, right? Always. We've had these conversations for 100 years. They always know how to get there. And we're always the ones looking at a map going, no, but the directions say, it's just the way it is. So we finally, she, bless her heart. So we endured the whole COVID thing and she was able to come this year. And I had a lot of women on board, but honestly, even out of the dozen women that did show up for the compassing map event up in the Cornucopia Mountains, I know there was a ton more, but because it's new to them, right? So now Tiff's planted this seed where, and those people went home and told a bunch of people, and now they're part of Tiffany's Google network where Tiff goes, she sends information out and YouTube's out, book clubs out, events out, all this stuff. Now they can start to feel more a part of it. So if she was able to come next year, it would double in size, right? Because that whole thing about coming for the first time is breaking down those first walls of, will I be judged? How uncomfortable will I be? How, was it really worth carving out that time out of my busy ranching, farming schedule, whatever schedule it is. And so she's always done a great job of that first time experience being professional, on board, highly communicated. And, so then, she does all that work, but then you just got to get people there. And then once they get to that first one, because it's so well organized and thought through, boom, they're in. Right. So I know it would double if she was to, be able to come out here in the Tules again, just because of that experience these ladies had.
Yeah, that's such a good that is what I would want to say, I guess. Like, if anybody is listening that's like hungry for WOWNet, Debi did all of that. Like, I like to call them these spark plugs, and they're rare, few and far in between. But just because she was able to rally some women, a handful, really, like Jake, the local forestry and natural resource extension agent out there, and myself were floored that 12 women came in Halfway, Oregon to this event, because we were like, we'll be happy with 6 or so because it's a brand new thing. Nobody's heard of it, and it's intimidating. And I just think if there's a woman out there who's like, I want this in my neck of the woods, then just reach out, and I will do my darndest, because like, if there's 5 women who are like, I need WOWNet in my life, then I'm like, hey, let's make that happen, because I don't want to leave anybody without it. It feels like such an important resource to me to share with people, that we'll just do what we can to make it happen. And I think like at that workshop, those women were like, wow, oh man, I wish so-and-so would have came. Oh, I'm definitely going to invite so-and-so next time. And that's how it works, and it snowballs from there. And you get a good group of ladies who will always come no matter what. And you can always know, if you put on a WOWNet thing, that these 12 people will come and hopefully bring a friend or a neighbor or something. And I think that is something that's really beautiful about extension as a whole, is like, then if you, Debi, are inviting a neighbor, that person feels so much more safe and comfortable to come to this workshop because they have you. And as for specifically WOWNet, if you are going to another workshop, you can reach out to your WOWNet ladies and be like, hey, I'm going to this workshop, so we can be our own little safe space in this larger workshop. And so then it kind of empowers women to help each other go to these other things also and feel safe because they have a friendly face. And so, I think that's really cool. I thought it was kind of funny because randomly my dad was at that workshop, and Jake, so these 2 dudes, and my dad afterwards was like, it's kind of weird because all these ladies brought flowers to talk about, and Debi cried during that. I cried during that. I was like, I asked the women to bring a piece of their property, something small from their property that they could share. And we did these introductions, and it was just like so beautiful and so pure, and just a lot of them brought flowers. And I was like, that's not weird. That's what makes these people different. Like, they didn't bring DBH tape to be like, oh yeah, that's how I measure my trees. It was like just such a beautiful moment and experience. And I'm like looking back there, and I love Jake, but like he's looking through something, and my dad's like, that was kind of weird. And I was like, that was so beautiful. You guys are weird.
Goes to show you how different we are.
Yeah.
So Tiffany, you talked a lot about women who might be interested about joining WOWNet or craving this experience from listening to the podcast. You said to get a hold of you. Can you give them a little bit more information about that? How do they join up? Or join up, that sounds like bad. It's not a cult. How do how do they get in contact with you or learn about where these events are happening?
Okay, so if there's anybody listening that's interested in learning more about WOWNet, that's like a good first step. It's extension.oregonstate.edu/WOWNet, WOWNET. That's our website. And there's just a little bit of information. There's a nice little video you can watch, and then some learning resources that are really awesome that I've specifically chosen for maybe that would be of more interest to female landowners. And then, if you want to join, WOWNet is free. There's no membership fees or anything. It's really, from my perspective, about meeting you where you're at. So if you read about you join the listserv. So it's just a mailing list, and then I send out all the workshops and whatever. And if you read about one that you're like, I want to go to that, you can sign up. If it's not of interest to you, there's like no pressure to come or anything like that. And maybe, a lot of women are busy or raising children, whatever. It might just be that you're receiving the emails and that's enough for you. And a lot of the times, like the newsletter, I just pack it full of resources and then try to send out opportunities as they come. But it's about a once a month email or so. It's kind of maybe like on average. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah.
Well, it's so good to hear from you all about your amazing experiences with WOWNet. Don't leave us yet. We have a lightning round to ask you some little bit more personal questions. Okay, so before the end of each episode, we do a lightning round where we ask our guests a few final questions. We'll start with Tiffany. So Tiffany, what's your favorite tree?
My favorite tree is a Douglas fir. I think classic because I was born and raised in Oregon, so I grew up amongst the Doug firs. I have a giant tattoo of one on my back.
Awesome. Popular tree on this podcast.
Oh, I bet.
Okay, so what's the most interesting thing that you bring with you out into the field, whether it's in a cruiser vest or a field kit or any type of bag you like to bring out with you?
Yeah, I was thinking something a little bit more unique, and then like as you were asking that, I was like, oh, something super morbid that I bring is baby aspirin. I like specifically to workshops because I'm always afraid that something bad is going to happen and someone's going to have a heart attack. So I keep baby aspirin in my pocket.
Well, you got to be safe.
Yeah. I don't know why heart attacks in the woods just scare me. But yeah, and my husband's a paramedic, so I'm just always kind of thinking in those ways, I guess. But yeah, maybe less morbid. I think I bring like a sense of wonder. I feel like that's such a cheesy answer to that question, but I'm always like on the lookout for little things that I can just like, I don't know, like a little pine cone I could bring back to my boys and show them and like dissect it and stuff. I just feel like that is something that I don't see most of my colleagues doing or looking at the woods in those ways, or I'll like pick up little caterpillars and help them cross the road when I'm walking or the trail, or if something's dead in the trail, like a worm, I like give it a little burial or whatever. So I think just like this, I always bring to the woods with me some kind of sense of like wonder and wanting to explore in this, like looking at the tiny little details, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. And then lastly, what resources would you recommend to our listeners if they're interested in learning more about Women Owning Woodlands or other female empowerment programs in the woods or forests?
So I was thinking, like, if you are a female landowner and you're looking for resources, obviously somehow you've been connected with Extension. So hopefully that's the first place I direct ladies, is like their local Extension agent. But then also my favorite resource online is the Know Your Forest Learning Library. And that to me is such an approachable resource for people. And then also now the Tree School Online, the webinars that are there for people to access, those are now my two favorite resources that I direct ladies to.
Yeah, those are amazing resources, and it's always great to remind people of those and share those out. So Debi, I'm excited to hear your answers. Do you want to share with us what your favorite tree is?
Well, my favorite evergreen tree on the east side would be the Ponderosa. I like the Ponderosa for a lot of reasons, but one reason that I'm really in favor of it now is it tends to be kind of fire resistant. It has a nice thick bark on it, right? And it grows here naturally, right? So when we bought our property of 17 acres, I ordered 2,000 trees. And even though we didn't plant out all in the whole orchard part, or not the orchard, but the pasture part of it, I'll tell you, those little ponderosa trees that I got, for 50 cents a piece are now, oh gosh, at least on average 18 to 24 inches each. And so they love growing here, right? So it's super important, I think, to obviously plant what grows there naturally, but I've come to love them. And so, now that's my favorite tree on the east side.
It's a good one, especially when you get to smell their bark when it starts to crack. Okay, so what's the most interesting thing that you bring with you in the field? In a cruiser vest or a field kit or your truck?
I am a notebook person. So taking notes. I love to take notes and I love to take pictures. And I know that's not super interesting, but I just do. I'm just constantly always writing down things or drawing little pictures of what I see. And it helps me remember. So I always have like a little notebook with me.
Yeah, great. I always forget things, so notebooks are great to help you remember too. Okay, and then did you have anything that you wanted to share, a resource that you could recommend to our listeners if they wanted to learn more about WOWNet or forestry in general?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Tiff said, and that was the Women Owning Woodlands. There's a national site. And so this is like so wonderful for Oregon, but just know this isn't just Oregon, right? This is a national organization. And and when I learned that it made it even more exciting for me because I felt, oh, wow, I'm even more connected, Another one that I love was OFRI, which kind of went into what's called OregonForest.org. And I love that for kids, families, and teachers. I also love the group that's called Oregon Natural Resource Education Programs. Is that right, Tiff? It's ONREP. Oregon. It's with Leanne. Yeah. So ONREP has one that's amazing. So if you are an educator and you want to get involved and know more about forests, that's another super good one, like the OregonForest.org. And I totally piggyback on Tiff's, know your forest. That's just lovely. And then as far as organizations, you do not have to own trees to be involved with Oregon Small Woodlands Association. It is an association for people who love trees. If you have one tree and you care about that tree, I would just say it's a very reasonable organization to join. You get to walk on people's properties and learn about what they're doing. And you get to hear from all ages of people and all experiences of people who love the woods. So I would do a shout out for OSWA, and there's one in every county in the state of Oregon.
So as you were listening today, if any questions came up or we didn't cover a specific topic related to Women Owning Woodlands or peer learning programming, feel free to drop us a comment or send us a message on our website at inthewoodspodcast.org, and we'll try to cover it in a future episode. Welcome to In the Woods, ladies.
Hey, Lauren. Hey.
This is going to be such a fun episode. I'm hoping that at the end of this podcast, listeners have a really good idea about what programs are available at Oregon State University and how useful and amazing it is to have a program that empowers female forest landowners. But before we dive in, I'd like to get to know our guests a little bit more. Theresa, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm married to Kate, and Kate and I became kind of unexpected small woodland owners in 2019. And before that, she had been a teacher. I'd worked in a nursery. And before that, we'd both been ministering in impoverished communities. So this has been a real, one could say, pivot in direction. Or in some ways, it's also going back to much older roots.
Great. Kate?
Well, T took part of that over for me, which is actually good. But having been a teacher, one of the things that happened for us right away was knowing that what we needed to do was find people who knew more than we did because we knew just enough to know that loving the woods didn't mean we knew anything about taking care of a woodland. So that led us pretty quickly to the extension, and actually to you.
Yes, I'm grateful to have you in my area and be able to work with you often. Well, thank you so much for telling everybody about your experience. Can you tell us a little bit more now about why you joined WOWNet?
Oh, wow. Well, certainly we wanted to get to know people who knew more than we did. And to be fair, you pretty much couldn't shake a stick without hitting somebody who knew more than we did.
It is Oregon. It is Oregon after all.
Yeah. But somewhere along the line, it may have been doing research on like chainsaw safety or something. But somewhere along the line, we found WOWNet and went, wow, a group of women doing this, that would be awesome. And that's not to say anything bad about any of the men who are so good about teaching us things and being gentle with us. But the idea of a group of women, it's just different. And I think sometimes we share experiences and it just relate differently. And so that was really exciting.
Okay. So, it's great that WOWNet offers, those opportunities where you can be around women who are doing similar things. And there's just this different dynamic than maybe other multi-gender programs. So are there other reasons why this group is important to you, or specifically for your own experience?
I think actually how it became important to us is like so many things in owning our woodland is actually about the fires, because there was one of the online WOWNet retreats pretty much 3 days after we'd been allowed back onto the property after the holiday farm fire. And I remember there was a gentleness to everyone, certainly starting with Tiffany. I mean, you were actually one of the most gentle. You were a wonderfully gentle presence, even just running the virtual retreat, but you started talking to us. And I think we needed somebody that gentle. I mean, that was a really devastating experience to have a woodland and 18 months later pretty much have lost it. So somehow I think that cemented our sense of relationship, both with WOWNet and certainly with, our WOWNet director.
There's some really good women in there. And I think we started out with something as an idea, but then relationships evolve out of that too. Relationships, experiences. So, doing that online retreat, and we're not people persons. I mean, I know people think we are, but we're really not. If we're given a choice between going out and doing something with people and staying at our place, we will usually want to choose to stay at our place. But there have been some really awesome relationships forged even online. And I think that the quality of those relationships and the quality of the programming, but also knowing that the programming is going to be receptive to shifts in mood or personnel. I think that's had a lot to do with just how much a part of things WOWNet's become for us.
Yeah, that sort of plays into what you said earlier about, that it's those relationships and the content and almost that connection to being a woman as well. So like, how this might affect you as a woman using this tool because your body shape or size or strength is how it is, which it could be different than how a man would use it or somebody else. So yeah, it's kind of cool how the program just takes into consideration all those things.
And nobody has to feel bad because they don't want the biggest chainsaw possible, because that's just a lot of extra weight to be hauling around. And why are you doing that? And it's not a matter of, oh, my saw is bigger than yours. I mean, so what do you find really effective? And well, I have a couple, and you can, it's really fun to talk about tools, and it's okay to say that, well, I just don't like hauling this around. It's not worth the wait. And I know I could find myself in a co-ed group kind of going, I can haul that. Now, I mean, that's my own failure, but
but it is fun to be able to talk about those things. Like, where did you find a pair of gloves that actually fit and lasted and, didn't have to be pink? Or where did you find a good...
Come on, I love pink.
But I don't.
Okay, fair enough.
After it's been in the woods a while, it's going to be brown anyway. But
you know how to speak the truth.
Yeah. And actually, it's not like the gloves that I love the most aren't like some light shade of gray. So, and then brown. But it is fun to be able to talk about, what pants work, or, hey, these pants have pockets and they last and they can go through blackberries and they still fit you and you don't feel like a block, you still feel like you're a girl. But it's fun to be able to have folks to have those conversations with, because it's harder, guys go, oh yeah, well, this just fits. It's like, yeah, but what if it doesn't, or how do you find good cork boots, or some of those things that are tough to find if you're not, 6 feet tall or whatever. And we're so definitely not any of those things.
Yeah, I think at the chainsaw workshop that you both hosted, that was one of the things. It always is with WOWNet, like the equipment, the tools, the clothing, and that stuff. As soon as that starts getting talked about, people are out with their pens and pencils and just like writing down whatever everyone else is recommending. And you guys got out your chaps and were showing people, and people were just like, oh, okay, what's the brand? And, so I feel like that it's funny because that might not be something that people would think about as much. But even like one of the people who has taught the chainsaw workshop, who is that? I can't remember, but talking about like pulling your hair back and wearing like a supportive bra and just like making sure everything's, not out and about, and that can be dangerous. And that's like not something that you're talking about in a co-ed or, male dominated chainsaw class, hair ties and bras. So
maybe we need to.
Well, and it's fun too, because you get to sort of geek out about your favorite tools and things. And I don't know that women would always talk up as loudly in a co-ed group about how much they love their particular tools or the things that they like to do. So it's nice to have that space where it's also okay and you don't have to feel unfeminine because you do love your chainsaw or whichever your current favorite, whichever your current favorite tool is, whether it's, it's the Pulaski this week, or it's my, my grubber this week, or, depending on what you're doing, we love our tools too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I guess you sort of answered this question already, because we've talked a lot about how this group is slightly different than other woodland owner groups, specifically when you get to talk about clothes and bras in class. But is there anything else that makes, WOWNet a unique group to other woodland owner groups?
Yeah, it's, and I'm not quite sure how to say this and not have it sound like I'm putting a negative spin on it, but it's in a way less purpose driven than some. So like we're members of OWIT. OWIT has some pretty clear goals, and that's to support science-based forestry education in Oregon. Okay, so there are different ways of doing that, but that's a real goal, and to get that word out there. And with WOWNet, it's more about bringing women together, whether in person or virtually, to share and learn and network on things that are of concern or of interest. And so and this is not to say anything against OWIT either, because we're really, really involved in OWIT, but they're different. And I think it's great to have that difference. I think if folks wanted to really focus on educating the public or educating youth and found their way into WOWNet and found that that's not what we're doing, that would be frustrating, and vice versa. And so I think having this space for us to be and to share and to learn and to share the fruits of that learning and to share the fruits of other learning and to ask questions, it's really a great space to have available to us. Please speak, wife.
I was going to say, before you switch over, for the benefit of our listeners, can you just explain what OWIT stands for?
I'm sorry, Oregon Women in Timber, founded in 1978, really to support science-based education and forest literacy in Oregon.
Great, thanks. Okay, wife, go ahead.
Speak.
Actually, by now I've lost track of what the question was.
I know. I talk in circles like that.
What makes WOWNet unique from other woodland owner groups?
I think there's something about the networking piece that makes it something that can be so much more sort of flexible, so that it can so depend on what the group is, whether, because you're not as driven by a particular purpose, whether it's like, yes, with Oregon Women in Timber focusing on this education piece, or even some of the small woodlands groups that have, it's all about, fellowship and education and advocacy. WOWNet can actually be tailored to the group of women you have. And what they want to be able to do. So whether it's like have a book club, which has actually been really fun to like, let's read this book together and, talk about it. And the magic of reading Braiding Sweetgrass is something you can't replicate with every book. But I mean, that was really a wonderful kind of thing that you wouldn't assume that automatically a woodland owning group would be sort of focused on. And so that makes it kind of special, or being able to bring people together that wouldn't automatically, from chainsaws to wreath making, right? That's kind of a wonderfully broad kind of thing that you can be doing that can be equally appealing. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know that you do that in mixed gender groups in quite the same way.
Yeah, that's true. Those are some great, I know I would take a class series that started with chainsaws and ended with wreath making.
But also having a group of people who are interested in both of those things and everything in between. Not that all WOWNet are, but yeah, it's just like this. It makes it difficult to do programming because you have there isn't as direct of a purpose or goal, and you have some women who are like, I want to learn about the chainsaws, the tools, this on the ground, exactly this. And then you have some women who are like, I will never touch a chainsaw. I have no interest in utilizing a chainsaw. I'm not into that. And I would much rather learn about mushrooms or, whatever. And so for me, I've always looked at that as exciting because it's just like, okay, we get to do all of these different things. And I try to just really figure it out, like what are the women of the network looking for and how can we just kind of switch things up each year to offer things that are going to be applicable or interesting to different categories. But yeah, it is funny, like in 1 year doing a mushroom workshop and a chainsaw safety workshop and a non-timber forest products, this and management plan. Yeah, it's always all over the place.
That's, I think, part of what makes it wonderful. The newsletter that's been coming out that you started, Tiffany, especially when we were really all locked down, that's continued we're all in this together, which I love the title as well. But that's been kind of awesome because that's shown that whole breadth and scope of what WOWNet is all the way along, because you could never pin it down to being, about one particular thing. So that everyone can kind of dive in and connect wherever the net, wherever they want to grab the bit of the net, they can. Nice. So I think that's a really wonderful thing about WOWNet.
And kudos to you for facilitating that, because it would be much easier if the range of interests were narrower. But I think you do a great job of responding to that whole spectrum. And not everything is something everybody's interested in, but at least something's out there for you. And I know that puts more work on you, but thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Now that you've talked about all the, adjoining features and things that make WOWNet so wonderful because it's sort of fluid, I'm going to, make you tell me the opposite of that and try to pick one thing that's your favorite thing or favorite part about WOWNet.
Really? You're going to walk into that? Because we can say that our favorite part of that is that huge spectrum of possibilities that it offers.
Touche.
Actually, I think one of my favorite parts has been the relationship that's grown actually with a few of the women in WOWNet, but actually our sense of relationship with you, Tiffany, has been really an incredibly special part of it, to know that we can reach out to you if we have a random question or we need, to be connected to another part of the net, or, can we cheat and sit in on the Master Woodland Manager mini college? We promise we won't say anything. And because there's a relationship, we got to do that, which made us feel more included in this sort of woodland owning community, but also made us feel really excited that we'd been listening in enough of our classes that we actually understood things we were hearing. But yeah, I'd say that's been it's helped us feel more connected, which is kind of what a net should do too.
Huh. I feel the same back. So I'm withholding my crying, so that's all I'm going to say.
Well, speaking of favorites, so now that we talked about your favorite part about WOWNet, do you have a favorite experience or workshop or memory related to WOWNet that you were willing to share with us?
So here's kind of a weird one, because we're not the actually craftsy hands-on. I mean, Tiffany's always amazing that she can do that. But one of the things the first thing we did do was actually the wreath making workshop that you hosted. Mm-hmm. And now what was fun was actually the wreaths weren't horrible that we made, which was fun. But actually the most fun we had was that it connected us by the end of that workshop, because we stayed around to help clean up afterwards, which actually, I don't know if that should be my favorite memory, but it actually,
I appreciate it.
It was, but it actually, that was the best part, because we got to know we got to know Wilda and Steve that way. So that made us feel more connected to our small woodland owner group in our county, but it also really connected us, so with Wilda, who's, she's been her own sort of through line thread of our experience of WOWNet too. So that, in the trenches, kind of having those opportunities to connect in the way you're best at, which for us actually always has been the cleanup afterwards. But that often is how we feel most connected, is like, if you're able to work in the trenches beside somebody, as something as small as cleanup, although it can feel pretty big if you're the only one left to clean up. So feeling welcomed, that made us feel more welcome and made us want to do more things with WOWNet. Mm-hmm. Do you have one?
I had this moment last night at book club looking at the screens, and it's like, wow, I know all these women. And, some of them I know only through a screen because we've done book club together, but others I've gotten to know even more through that screen than I would if I only saw them at, say, OSWA events. And that was really cool. Just this, over a 3-year period, we have gotten to know people.
Yeah. WOWNet's mattered enough to us that, we left the property to go to like when there was the actual retreat, we actually left and, fire season was mostly done, but September's are scary times by now. And we were willing to, leave and drive to not the other end of the state, but it's not like it's that big a state, but, to drive to go be away for a weekend because we wanted to hang out with other WOWNet women and with Tiffany. So, and that was actually, and learn more at the same time. That was the best kind of retreat. Like, it's like class. Every few hours, there's a new class, and new things to learn.
And no offense, Oregon, at not being that big a state. It wasn't meant insultingly.
Yeah, that's really cool. About getting to know people. I feel like specifically with the book club, because it's so many consecutive meetings where people if they've came to the first one, then they're continuing to come, and it's been a definite continuation from the first group.
Right.
So I was noticing that last night too, like there's a banter and people have just grown to feel much more comfortable kind of giving little teases or asking like a follow-up question, like you said this and can you expand, or whatever. And that wasn't happening at the very beginning of the book club. And so that's really cool to see from my perspective too. It's really special because like you said, if even over the course of the retreat, that definitely happens, but then it's like, you might not see those women for 2 years at the next retreat because if you're in totally different parts of the state. And that was one of the beautiful things about the book club, that this is going to be an opportunity besides the retreat that can feel not attainable for a lot of women. It's going to be an opportunity to bring women from all over the state together, and so that's been pretty special. Not anticipated outcome, I guess, is like really building relationships and the depth of the conversations. Like you really get into stuff that you would not get into at a normal workshop, as hard as I might try to drag out those like emotion-based responses. It just never really happens. It doesn't happen organically, and you can't force it. And this has been so organic and so not forced. So that definitely helps in building those relationships. And I love that because now when you see that person at a workshop, that's already in existence, and that's so cool.
And it's sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
Nope.
It's been awesome because I've certainly heard of women's book clubs where nobody reads the book, you just go and gossip and drink wine, and it's like, or I could shoot myself. But this has been really deep conversation and more purpose driven than say the WOWNet overarching purpose. But so if you don't want that, you don't join book club. And clearly there are people who don't join book club, and there are these great conversations that happen because we're discussing things that matter in a deep way. And then you get to that point in the conversation where the book isn't even as important as the questions and the conversation it kicks off.
Yeah.
And that has been one of those odd byproducts of, moving into this Zoom universe, that it is pretty wonderful that we can sit in the comfort of our own homes and like not have to leave our woodlands and yet be able to connect with other woodland owning women in the comfort of their own living rooms. And I think that and your sort of gentle facilitation of those conversations and relationships has helped us forge deeper relationships and have those deep conversations that are about the woods, but are also about the world.
That's so true. Most Zoom stuff is like, oh man, another Zoom. That one, I'm like, yes, I'm so excited. And it's crazy because on Zoom, we've struggled so much as facilitators, especially extension. That's one of the goals, is to like really have people participating and feel comfortable asking questions. And how can I apply this to my specific property? And on Zoom, it's hard to get people to unmute and to engage in a way that we were able to do easily in in-person events. And so I was terrified because I was like, this is going to be just me sitting up here having a conversation with myself while all these women stare at me on Zoom. I was like, but we're going to try it. We're going to try it. And it's been actually the exact opposite of that. So yeah. And I think like one of the questions last night about like the camping and people that want to go camping and see other people, and we were like, ew, why would you want to see other people camping? And we were like, oh, this is one of those things that's probably unique to people who own woodlands. And so there is this very much like tie through that. It's like, well, yeah, we can all relate on this different level that a normal group of women gathering to do a book club, it wouldn't have that through line where it's like, yeah, and we're all woodland owners and can kind of talk about these things in a different capacity. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, such a unexpected, like my favorite thing that I've ever done in WOWNet. So
yeah, it really speaks to the power of peer learning programs, because it's just a way that you subconsciously break down those walls and barriers between the other people in class. And you can really get deep conversations about whatever the topic is and how that relates to your own personal experience. It's pretty cool. And we don't see it very often at other woodland owner groups, because you just don't have that ability to engage with people as much. It's really cool. And it's a wonderful experience to be part of one of those programs. I don't get to go to all of them, but the ones I do get to are some of my favorite. So is there anything else about WOWNet that you'd like to share, or that you love or
hate
or
How rude.
But I think WOWNet's one of those things that women who own a woodland are part of owning a woodland. I mean, there are more and more things that are coming out, that there are more and more women that are woodland owners. And whether they're woodland owners with, a male partner or on their own, or if they've inherited a property. And I think the power of recognizing that supporting women as really important in this whole venture of caring for forests for the long term. Like the Women's Forest Congress, the initial one just was these past few days. And I think the power of bringing women together and finding these, and we have found a number of different groups of women to be a part of. And I think there's just something really important about them, because they're safe spaces to be challenged, to learn, and to be about something bigger than just your own property, to actually know that you're part of something that's about caring for a piece of the planet that's, that's interlocked into many other pieces of the planet. And I think there's just something really important and valuable about having it exist. And yeah, I think all women who own woodlands should be a part of WOWNet.
Without being prescriptive,
being prescriptive about it. But yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly, without being prescriptive about it.
Well, what a wonderful way to close out our conversation about WOWNet. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Lauren.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Don't leave us yet. We have our lightning round up next. So, what's your favorite tree?
Oh, please forgive me, all my precious Dougs, but probably a coast redwood.
You know, that might be the first time I've heard it on the podcast, surprisingly. Very nice.
And I'm thinking at this very moment, I'm loving the Pacific Madrone.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
But more apologies to all of our Dougs on the property. Yeah.
My answer was the Doug fir, so I got you.
We get a lot of Doug fir.
Although hemlocks are kind of awesome
Hemlocks,
too.
yeah. And actually, I always go talk to our little baby grands because they're the ones that, and I always think of Lauren when I go, oh, little grand, look at you.
I don't think I've told this story on the podcast before, but when I was in graduate school, I TA'd a class on, I don't know, it was like Pacific Northwest Forest or something like that. And I led a field trip around the campus IDing trees. And I told the undergrad students that I was showing everyone a grand fir. And I said, oh, this was named after my great, 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 great grandfather. And they all believed me. And I was like, no, I'm just making that up. But how cool would it be? So I love that.
Oh, grand.
I was that gullible too. So when I was a freshman.
But I do think of you every time I see our grand firs. And especially because right now they're some of the ones that are surviving, which, these last couple of years have not actually been easy. So that they're surviving is pretty cool. Badass little trees.
All right. Okay. Well, what about the most interesting thing that you like to bring into the woods with you? Whether it's in a vest or a field kit or your pocket.
My sword.
Your sword. You'll have to elaborate on that one.
Which isn't really a sword, but as you age, well, as I age, I have trouble finding words sometimes. And so her sword is actually a foldable saw. But there was one day I wanted to make sure she had the saw with her. And I'm like, okay, I know this is the wrong word, but the only word I can come up with is sword. And so by now we always are like, so do you have your sword with you?
That's incredible.
It's
definitely
like,
more fun.
Yeah, if you can't beat them, join them. So I don't know if it's a fun thing I always carry, but I'm always trying to bring my Felcos with me because we went on a walk once with another woodland owner, Lindsay Reeves, and watched her pull out clippers about 15 times to go after, blackberries on the side of the road. And so by now, when we go for a walk, I try to make sure I have my sword in one pocket and my Felcos in another pocket in case we need to. And I'm usually going after thistles in case there are thistles I need to cut down.
Nice.
I don't know if that's an interesting thing. It's just something we always have.
But it's a good tip. Yeah. And we actually did interview Lindsay on a previous podcast. So if there's any listeners that are interested in learning about Lindsay's objectives on her property, I think she also mentions her pruning shears and how she brings them out on all the walks. So, okay. And then the last question that we ask is, do you have any resources that you would recommend to our listeners if they wanted to dive a little bit deeper into peer education or women owning woodlands or just landowner education in general?
Well, my first thought and what we always say to people is, have you checked out Extension? Which you didn't ask for that sort of plug, but we say, have you talked to your Extension forester? And I think we always are pushing people in that direction between Extension and OFRI. To go check out the Oregon Forest Resources Institute website because there are amazing resources there. But for the peer-to-peer, Extension and then small woodlands.
Yeah.
Check out your local small woodlands chapter.
But with Extension and OFRI, I don't even know that in a lifetime you could get through all of the resources available. it's astounding. I think we thought we'd gone to heaven when we discovered those websites.
And with all of the Tree School online recordings as well, I mean, you can do an awful lot of learning without having to leave your living room. Because I'd say leave your forest, but you kind of have to be inside to have the
Internet
connection to watch them. Otherwise, you could go do it in the woods.
Yeah. Well, we've done that. We've done classes on our phones in the woods.
We have actually.
That's
the power
awesome.
of technology these days.
To resources that I refer people to when people just randomly email me about WOWNet or MWM. That's the first thing I say, like, have you talked to your local forestry and natural resources extension agent? And here's the OPRI webpage, the Know Your Forest Learning Library. Because I'm like, that's going to be your two biggest sources of information, and I'll help you as much as I can. But yeah.
I mean, this doesn't have to be part of a recording, but one of the things we did we had a new neighbor who we knew was a new woodland owner, and I actually sent him to our local small Woodlands Association webpage, but I sent him to the specific page that's resources, because it has all of those things listed. So, it has Lorence on it, and it has extension overall, and it has WOWNet, and it has OWIT, and it has OFRI and OSWA, and all of those different resources, because Oregon's amazingly fortunate in having this wealth of resources for small woodland owners. And all you have to do is take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Well, it's so wonderful to have all you ladies on the podcast. It's great to hang out with a group of women, even if it's virtual. Thank you so much again for joining me today. And thank you so much to our listeners. That concludes our episode about Women Owning Woodlands. And join us in a couple weeks to explore another topic about Oregon's amazing forests. Until then, what's in your woods? Thank you so much for listening. Show notes with links mentioned on each episode are available on our website, inthewoodspodcast.com. We would love to hear from you. Visit the Tell Us What You Think tab on our website to leave us a comment, suggest a guest or topic, or ask a question that can be featured in a future episode. And also, give us your feedback by filling out our survey. In the Woods was created by Lauren Grand, Jacob Putney, Carrie Berger, Jason O'Brien, and Stephen Fitzgerald, who are all members of the Oregon State University Forestry and Natural Resources Extension Team. Episodes are edited and produced by Kellen Soriano. Music for In the Woods was composed by Jeffrey Hino, and graphic design was created by Christina Freehoff. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we can't wait to talk to you again next month. Until then, what's in your woods?